KCA Community Association General Membership meeting on November 21st. My name is Mike Moran. I am currently the president of the association and very proud of our association. We like to always start off with some mahalos. So first we like to thank our board members. Board members, if you raise your hands. I get all the credit and these guys do all the work. So that's the way the system works, but that's what makes things go. We also like to thank our committee members who are not necessarily board members. We have members of the community who just step up and want to participate in a process with us to supplement what the board is doing. And then, of course, the key, we're a membership organization. So if you are a KCA member, would you raise your hand, please? And again, without members, it's a membership organization. People say, why should I join? Well, if you don't have members, we're not going to be here anymore. So that's a key. Those are the three strongholds of what makes our association work. We also want to say mahalo to our host of this beautiful, beautiful facility, Pro Arts, and would like Lynn to come up and give her a minute to talk about what this facility does and how she's so glad to have us here. Thank you, Lynn.
Hi everyone, my name's Lynn. I'm Executive Director here at Pro Arts. We are very, very excited to have the KCA Community Association. This is our second time having you all here. And we will be having you here for most of the meetings going forward for the next year. We're very excited about that. We do a whole lot of different things. For those of you who have never been here before or aren't familiar with Pro Arts, we do meetings like this for the community. We do comedy, music. We've got Eric Gilliam on a weekly basis, John Cruz twice a month. We've got a full theatrical season. Our next big show is The Reluctant Elf, which opens on December 1st. That is going to be a very family-friendly show, so bring out the keiki. It's a really good time. It's a musical review. Tons of fun. We also have monthly comedy. We've got lectures, film screenings, all sorts of things. You can check out us at proartsmaui.org by following us on social media or signing up for our email list up at the front. And also, if you have never heard of our Access for All program, that is a program we want to make sure that the arts stays accessible for the community in all circumstances. So we are able to do buy one, get one free or entirely free tickets for folks as the need arises. And usually that's only 1 or 2 per performance, but given everything that's happening in the community, we've actually changed that through the end of the year. We have unlimited free tickets to anyone displaced from the fire. So if you know somebody who just needs a night out, please send them our way, and we're happy to do that. If anybody needs any water or anything, we've got a lovely water filter up at the front, and the restrooms are just out and to the left, and we'll try and take good care of you here this evening. So thank you very much.
Okay, we like to recognize our elected officials. So I believe there's only 2 here. If I miss somebody, please let me know. Sitting here in the front row, we have our state representative for South Maui, Therese Amato. And participating in our, well, Therese is participating at the very end for a couple of minutes. We squeezed her in. But part of the formal presentation, we have our South Maui Council member, Tom Cook. No other elected officials here? So I don't slide anybody. Okay, good. And we also want to recognize our Maui Police Department. We have our community officers here tonight. They're easy to spot because they're in uniform. You can pick them right now. Also, I mentioned the value of our committee members, and a special mahalo tonight to one of our committee members and a past board member, Mary Trotto. Mary gets an extra mahalo because if you've had any of the water or the snacks, Mary has provided those for you tonight. So thank you, Mary. Okay, we have, if you have questions, we have index cards. We ask you to write your question on the index card, and then we'll have somebody, one of our board members, read the questions to the appropriate presenter. If you choose to say, well, what happens if they don't get to my question? If you want to get a response, we will do that if you put a contact information on there, put your email on the card. If you want to get a response, if we don't get to your question. If you don't care, no need to put it on. But if you do put it on, please write it legibly. Otherwise, we don't want to hear back, hey, nobody contacted me, well, we couldn't read what you wrote down. So please, if you do that, please write it clearly. And we'll be having a couple of our board members going up and down, passing out cards if you didn't get one and you want one, and also collecting them after so they can be part of the meeting.
Do you have a pen?
Okay, the Maui Food Bank. We've had over a decade, we've had a continuous Maui Food Bank donation, and we hope you brought something tonight and deposited it. But if he forgot, you said to him, remember to bring some food, and he forgot to bring it, drop it off. There's 2 restaurants in here. Nalu's restaurant does collecting, and Ikolu on the other side of the center. The Firehouse does it, KCA Rent-A-Car does it. It doesn't make any difference how it gets to the food bank, just that it gets to them. Because every time we check in, the statistics are worse, that there's more people needing food on this island. It seems incredible that with all the wealth we have on this island, we're building $10 million homes, and other people are having children go to bed hungry. So please remember that and contribute any way you can to the food bank. Okay, we have a requirement. Those of you who have been with us for a while know that at this November meeting, we have to present the slate of board of director members for 2024. And those are elected by the members. So we try and do it by acclamation. We'll read you the names of the directors for 2024. Some are familiar, some of these old guys that have been around here forever, and some new ones. But we'll just read off all the names and then ask for a vote of acclamation by the members. If you're not a member, please don't vote, no cheating. Okay, so we'll read off the names. We have Andrew Vera, Harry Hecht, Ellen King, John Laney, who's one of our new members, and right behind him, Audrey Lester, who's also a new member, Mike Moran, still here, Adele Rugg, Bob Schattenberg. Bob is going to conduct most of the meeting on the stormwater. Ron Schmidt. Ron is going to come up shortly and give you a quick update on what we did the last meeting on the wildfires. Charlene Schoenberg, Patricia Stillwell, who you all met when you come in the door. She's been a welcoming person for many, many years. Randy Wagner, and last but certainly not least, our Vice President, Rob Weltman. So if I can ask for a show of hands by the members that you approve of the slate, please. Okay, it looks like a vote of acclamation to me. Thank you very much, folks, and thank you to all these people for volunteering. Give the old go here just a minute to make sure I covered all the notes, and then I can get out of the way. I believe I got it all. Okay, so Ron will come up and give us a quick refresher on the situation with the wildfires.
Thank you. So many of you were probably here last 2 months ago when we had a really good meeting about the fires. And we had some outstanding people talking about things that need to be done. And what we want to do is give you some follow-up, let you know what's going on. So there were 2 primary areas that we were looking at. One was something that would come from the community. They were talking about fire-wise communities. We've sent out stuff asking for people to volunteer, and we're not getting much response. So quite frankly, that leg is really very weak right now, and we're not making any progress there. If anybody wants to talk to me afterwards about that, about being willing to really take a lead in that, then come talk to me. The other side, though, is very promising. They have started. They met today for the first time. We now have a fire committee that has been formed. It's done with Lance De Silva, who's with the Department of Forestry, and with Henry. What's his last name? Chief Henry, who was here last time. I'm sorry, I forgot his name at the moment. But they have met, and the first step is for them to figure out who should be on this committee. They're going to put together a committee of about 12 people, and it's going to include the Department of Transportation, the police department, fire department, Department of Forestry, somebody from the mayor's office, somebody from the liaison to the governor's office. And basically these people get together and decide what it is that's the scope that they want to talk about for developing a fire prevention program and actually implementing it. And what they'll do is what they have decided is that the area they're covering will be Mount Alea through McKenna. So that will be the target area that they're going to be focusing on. Once they form this group, they expect to be bringing in the ranchers to join in with this. They expect to be talking to HOAs, in particular probably the ones up in North Kihei and also in Maui Meadows, and to start to be bringing them in to talk about what it is that they need to do. And this is the group that we hope will eventually be coming up with the recommendations for fire breaks, for green belts, and anything else that we're going to be needing. One thing that they have talked about is also developing a program to have us figure out where do you go in a fire. And I think what you heard if you were here, what you heard was that they're saying, if we have a fire right now that cuts off North Kihei Road, you can't get out. And what we need to be thinking about are where are the places you can go. So these might be open green areas that would be easily defensible. So that's another thing that they will be developing. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment, and they will be meeting again in January, and we hope to keep on them, and we hope to actually be participating with them in these meetings. So we'll try to keep you apprised of what's going on there. So thank you.
Okay, you're getting rid of me in just a minute. Bob is going to come up and work with our three presenters, and we have in the middle we have Scott Meidel from Haleakala Ranch. Obviously, we're starting at the top of the mountain where the water starts, and then on his left we have Michael Reyes, who has presented to us many times. A man that knows more about the watershed and the situation than most folks do. So we thank him for coming back again. And on the far side, we have, who we introduced earlier, our council member, Tom Cook. And then you also met Therese, who's going to give a very short state ledge mention at the end. So I'll get out of here and put Bob up here, who can do a much better job than me. Bob, take it away.
Before I forget, I just want to follow up on something that Ron said. He and I are going to be on this task force. So we're going to be working with these people at each of the meetings. And needless to say, pushing as hard as we can to get things done. So if you people have issues that you want to be addressed at these task force meetings, you should either come to me or to Ron and let us know. The most important thing that we're going to talk about, one of the many important things, is what we call this safe zones, this map of safe zones. And we're going to need your help to figure that out. You people have to tell us where you would want to, what do you think would be a safe zone for you to go to in the event that you can't get out? And so that's just, anyway, you just need to know that we're going to keep working with them to get this done, okay? And before I forget, I want to add that Michael is one of the founders, one of the co-founders of the Malama Haleakala Foundation, which is this amazing foundation that's working diligently and tirelessly to attempt to deal with the stormwater problem that we have. Now, so tonight we have 3 amazing speakers, folks. And by the way, thank you for being here, because this obviously is a subject that is important to all of us. Michael is a notice, I just want to make sure that I say this right. He's a senior ecologist with the Maui Environmental Consulting Company, LLC. Has been working in this area in Maui for many, many years. So his perspective is going to be from the ecology perspective. Scott, fortunately, is going to be from the rancher's perspective. Well, we all know that the ranchers are critical to dealing with the problem. And of course, then Tom is going to tell us what is happening at the council and what he's doing to move these things forward. So without further ado, let's start with Michael.
Hello everybody, I'm Michael Reyes with Maui Environmental Consulting. I'm also associated with Malama Haleakala Foundation, along with Koba, who's in the audience. And today I'm going to be kind of giving like a progress report on some of the projects that we've been working on and some of the grants that we've been going after. And so I guess we'll go to the next slide. So with regards to watershed plans, we actually just had approved by the Department of Health and the Clean Water Ranch, that's right, the EPA, the Waikapu and Waiakua watersheds. And so this is in addition to the Poakea, Hapapa, Wailea, and Mo'oloa watersheds that are already approved. So once we have approved watershed plans, these plans are then eligible for 319 funding. And so with regard to, I guess, timing, the fact that we have 2 of the fires on Leeward Haleakala, the Pulehu fire and the Kula fire, are both in the Waiakua watershed, and so they're not eligible this year for 319 funding. And we believe DOH they've dedicated all of their funding for this year to fire relief, and so we think much of that will go to the Kula and Pulehu fires. And so with, I just want to emphasize that with the approval of Waikapu and Waiakua, we now have over 100,000 acres spanning from McGregor's Point to McKenna State Park that are now covered under approved watershed plans. And you guys can all download and look over these watershed plans at mauiwatershed.org. And they're also going to be on the Hawaii Department of Health website. So we'll go to the next slide. So, I encourage everyone to look into these watershed plans yourselves, but I just wanted to talk about, like, what are we doing with this watershed planning? Like, what's the purpose of it? And as an example, in the Waiakua watershed, we were looking at some of the issues with infrastructure and flooding, and we know that we've had a lot of flooding in North Kihei Road, or South Kihei Road and North Kihei Road intersect. And as an example, we have a picture here kind of showing Keahu EV Gulch and Kaikoa Gulch. And as you see, we have this gulch that's kind of like discharged into a very narrow swale, and then it's supposed to turn and end up in Kailua Pond. We know that during large storm events that's not occurring, and it's actually flooding the highway. And so, we're going through all these watersheds and looking at places where we can make corrections or improvements to the watershed. Next slide, please. So with this one, I wanted to talk about axis deer, because we have seen a lot of sediment that's being deposited in Kihei after these big storm events, these Kona storm events. It's directly related to the populations of axis deer that are just growing exponentially out of control. These axis deer, they denude the landscape, and I'm sure Scott will talk more about the ranchers. They have rotational grazing for their cows to ensure that their cows aren't overgrazing any particular area. But with axis deer, they're just running wherever they want and overgrazing, thousands of acres, and so we're not able to control their grazing practices without installing axis deer fencing. And that's needed. And so I just wanted to play this video, Rob, if you don't mind hitting play on that. This is recorded in South Maui. Many of you may have seen this video already, but this is just kind of like to show the scale of the axis deer issue. This is actually probably not that impressive of a herd of let's try to go back there. But if you just look, I mean, this amount of deer can do a lot of damage to the landscape, especially during times of drought. And especially now that we've had a fire run through any vegetation that tries to come back, these deer are going to be the first to get on it. So it's certainly an issue. Go next slide. So we have existing and planned feral ungulate fencing. And I'm guessing Scott will go into more detail on this. But I just wanted to show that the red fence is existing fence. So the ranchers have actually spent a lot of money installing fencing on the landscape, but there's a lot more fencing needed to make management units or just large paddocks that where the deer can then be controlled. They're no longer migrating around, and they can be removed. We'll go next slide. So as I mentioned, as deer overgraze, they're just leaving bare ground devoid of vegetation. And so during the rain events, that bare ground is then just easily swept up, sheet flow across the land right into the gulches, where it just runs out onto our reefs, and as of late, into the infrastructure associated with Kihei and Waileapa County. We'll go next slide, please. And I just want to say, Malama Haleakala Foundation, we're pretty happy. We were able to secure $400,000 from the Hawaii Department of Agriculture to place additional feral ungulate fencing on the landscape. It's kind of, I wouldn't say a drop in the bucket, but there's a lot more fencing needed than $400,000 we'll purchase, but we're happy that we were able to secure that money. Next slide. Now, many of you probably heard me talk about reclaimed wastewater. We're injecting at the Kihei wastewater treatment facility approximately 2.6 million gallons of water a day. And that water could be reused for landscaping, for where we use it for is we have a 7-acre native dryland forest project that we're growing native plants on Haleakala Ranch, immediately above the KCA wastewater treatment facility. But it could be used for establishing green bait breaks, for mitigating for axis deer damage. So in all those areas that have been denuded, to reestablish ground cover so that we're locking in our soils so that they don't get swept into the ocean during these stormwater events. We'll go next slide, please. So I mentioned the KCA riparian rehabilitation. All of these plants are using R1 water. This area is, like I said, just Melka of the wastewater treatment facility. We've got, this is like a willy model. We've got Lima growing. We've been pretty pleased about that. If anybody is interested in taking a tour, I think that we could probably facilitate that. We'll go with the next slide. Another R1 project that is being pursued is in partnership with Haleakala Ranch, but then also the Department of Health and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And this is a project where our intent is to identify the best way to irrigate using R1 water at a larger scale. But before we do that, we need to make sure that it's kind of bomb-proof for cows that they're able to walk over it, and that we're not causing erosion by watering the landscape, and just kind of dialing it in before we could start to talk about using it to establish green breaks at a landscape level, or using the R1 water at a larger scale on an active range. And so we'll just go next slide. Some of the opportunities, if we could scale this up, would be to put a reservoir up above, at elevation above the wastewater treatment facility, where then we could have distribution lines, irrigation infrastructure at the landscape level, where we could then distribute that water. So this is supposed to depict a 3 million gallon reservoir. I think that's kind of the magic number. You go bigger than that, it's dam. But I just want everybody to think about it. Even if you had a 3 million gallon reservoir, to use all the water that we're injecting every day, you would have to empty that reservoir essentially every day. So there's enough water that I think it could go around and be used in various areas. We'll go next slide, please. I think some of you have heard me talk about other riparian protection projects. This is the KCA High School, this is Old Bear Elementary, obviously, but we would like to do something similar to what we're doing out at KCA. In Kalaniakoi and Waipuilani, both of these gulches discharge a lot of sediment during stormwater events. And we think it would be a great opportunity for the students to be able to go out and plant native plants. And so we proposed this for fiscal year 2024. And so we're hopeful that we'll be able to do these projects. Next slide, please. All right, this one, the detention basin milk of Pilani Highway. This project, NRCS has spearheaded this. The way it worked was that the Department of Public Works had to request a partnership with NRCS. And NRCS then has to go have one of their contractors evaluate the project. And it's just very slow going, but my understanding, talking to the engineers at NRCS, is that this is still being pursued. And so we're just hopeful that this will get some legs and we'll start to see some traction on this project. Next slide, please. All right, fire management and mitigation. So the black shape file that you see there is kind of the burn scar from what we call the Pulehu fire. This mitigation project was included in the Waiakoa watershed plan, which is now an approved watershed plan. And so what we wanted to do was make an area that was basically like an axis deer exclusion area, and then establish some riparian buffers, some protective buffers on Kalaniakoi and Waiakoa Gulch to make sure that any sheet flow and sediment that was running into those gulches had basically like a vegetative protective barrier to slow that water down, pull the energy out of it, and more importantly, pull the sediment out of it. We also proposed some large cisterns that could be used for watering, also for fighting future fires. And so this was included in the watershed plan, but let's look at the next slide. This is actually NRCS's proposal for doing fire breaks, and these will actually be deer fences as well for that same burn area. And so this kind of lends itself to having those axis deer management units where once these areas are fenced off, we can protect them from the deer, let the grass reestablish itself, and also just like manage these areas. These will also, because there'll be fire breaks, they'll kind of protect from future fires. We'll go next slide, please. So this is a grant that Malama Haleakala Foundation just applied for. So we don't know if we're going to get the money or not, but what we wanted to do was put fire breaks at community wildland interfaces on the landscape to protect those areas from future fires, but then also to place large cisterns which would cut down helicopter flight times when reacting to wildfires. And then the third thing we wanted to do was provide the equipment necessary for the ranches to fight those fires. The ranchers are unfortunately required to be the first responders when these fires are occurring on their property, and so we wanted to make sure that they had equipment, like sprayers, and things of that nature to battle fires, ideally before they get out of control. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. That's it for me.
Good timing, Mike. Good timing. And just so that you know, the task force, this fire prevention task force that we're putting together, we're going to be working with all these guys eventually to get all this organized and coordinated. So fire breaks and such like that, it's all coming. Okay, Scott, you're up.
Good evening. It's really great to be here. I'm really grateful for the invitation. Big mahalo to the leadership of the KCA Community Association for reaching out. It's been a long time since the range has interacted with this group, and I'm really happy to be here. I have a lot to talk about this evening. And actually, I'm going to be building on some of the things that Michael's talked about. What I thought I'd do is give you a little orientation as to Haleakala Ranch, where we are, what we do, what we stand for. But before that, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. I've had the extreme good fortune of being able to work at Haleakala Ranch for the past 20 years. I came from Maui Land Pineapple Company for 15 years, where I worked in the Pu'ukui watershed as a forest reserve technician, working in the cathedral of that incredible place for so long. And prior to that, I worked for Maui Police Department for about 7 years, and was raised on Oahu, and moved over here after high school, went back to Oahu to go to college, and found my way here. And I'm very pleased to be here this evening. And maybe what we'll do is we'll go to the first slide. So Haleakala Ranch occupies 4 non-contiguous areas of East Maui, about 27,700 acres. 4 non-contiguous areas, the largest of which is the Mauka portion of the Ahupua'a Kalili Nui. Just cut out right here is what is now Haleakala National Park. Formerly, that was Haleakala Ranch land. The lands were conveyed after 10 years of negotiation between 1917 and 1926 to the territory of Hawaii, and ultimately to the Department of Interior, become what is now Haleakala National Park. In exchange for that, our company acquired lands in Kihei, and thereafter, probably within a year or so, acquired the Pulehu lands. And in 1959, we acquired the 3,300 acres on the south slope facing the Big Island, an area we affectionately call Waipai. Oh, thank you.
Walk around.
Okay. Mobile. Let's do a closer look with the next slide. Rob, thank you. So regionally, we occupy the leeward zones of the mountain, affectionately called the hot country, from just about sea level up to about 2,000 or 3,000 feet. This particular area, as you know, if we're lucky, we get 10 or 15 inches of rain per year. Contrast that with the area out here at Waikamoi. We've got this long finger of land, about 5,000 acres. It's managed by the Nature Conservancy of Hawaii. Waikamoi, 250 to 300 inches of rain per year. Montane cloud forest and wet forest, a very critical watershed that's managed very carefully to maintain the integrity of its watershed capacity. We also have about 1,200 acres up here as a subalpine preserve that the company manages on our frontier with Haleakala National Park. And in this particular area, our mountain mauka, goi, and ukulele pastures, we have a very aggressive invasive species control program. You may be familiar with gorse, a very thorny, noxious, and flammable shrub from Northern Europe that has taken hold in that area. And we spend an awful lot of time dealing with that malignancy. It's herbicide resistant, forms monotypical stands. If we didn't take care of it in that fashion, we'd lose the land. There's also a lot of pine trees that are taking over up in that area that are also a fuel hazard. And across our holdings, axis deer needs no introduction with this group. An incredibly profound problem. I'll have to tell you, I first became acquainted with axis deer in 1999 when I was working for Maui Land Pineapple Company. And it was late that year, early 2000, we had our first axis deer action committee. And we had a wildlife biologist who said, statistically, if this goes unchecked, you're going to be looking at 50,000 animals on this island in 20 years. Well, guess what? That's what we got. So presently, you know, we're dealing with anywhere between 60 and 75,000 right now. And the numbers don't look good unless we intervene, which we're planning to do, and we'll talk more about that. Our lands in Kihei, our lands up country, our lands in Waiapai, we're a ranch, we're a livestock operation, and I want to maybe change a bit of a paradigm. We view our livestock operation as a critical land management function. It is a very costly, very difficult to make a profit with livestock. But on a landscape level, there's really no better way to manage hazard fuel loads and to assert a management presence on the property. So we're committed to a very healthy, rational, rotational grazing program that I think has been very effective in managing fuel loads, and in fact, I think provided a lot of relief in these latest fires. Also, up country, we have a koa forestry program that we initiated in 2015. We presently have about 75,000 trees in the ground over about 1,000 acres. It's really great to put native trees back in the ground where they once were, and it's changing the visage of the landscape, and I think it's going to provide a wonderful habitat for forest birds, and be ecologically very important with respect to supporting and sustaining the watershed. Next slide. Okay, this is a revised or an updated slide that you saw from Michael. We're talking about the impacts of axis deer earlier. The impacts of axis deer combined with the profound drought that we've been having has created an unprecedented ecological disaster for us. The promotion of runoff because of the inability to control the grazing and the browsing habits of deer is an incredible challenge for us. There are two ways to deal with this, and it's a combined set of modalities, fencing and culling. You can't really do one effectively without the other. It's critically important that they're done together in a coordinated fashion to create management units, subdivisions within the land to create management units within which the animals can be controlled and culled. All of the bold lines that you see are existing fences. Notice they're mostly Malcolm Mackay. They're originally and initially designed to stop the lateral landscape level migrations of these vast herds of deer that number up to 1,000 head in size. To date, we've got about 70 miles installed, another 25 miles that are on the books, and we're on target to clear about 4,000 deer off the ranch this year. Last year was about 3,000. We have 3 different programs. We have a recreational hunting program for our employees and the owners of the company, but we also have control hunts and systematic venison harvesting operations that are certified by the USDA. So we're putting meat on the tables of folks. One of the things that we're really proud of right now is we're working with our contractors, our calling contractors, who have started a hollow eye program. There are coolers in Lahaina and I believe in central Maui that are constantly filled with venison from the ranches, Ulupalakua, Kaunulu, and Haleakala, that are given away free of charge to folks that have been impacted by the fire. And to date, I think we've done something like 40,000 pounds of ground venison to families in need. That makes us feel really good. So I think between the deer, the drought, and the fires, we've really had a rough year. Can I have the next slide, please, Rob? I think just to provide some context, I thought I'd let you know what happened up country too. So around midnight on August 7th, a fire started up here, the apex of this triangle. At the very top up there is the top of Olinda Road. Down here behind the annotation box is Makawao. And the fire started apparently from an electrical short or some a branch falling across a wire. Quickly took hold in that pine forest and then propagated very rapidly over the ranch. And the speed and the trajectory of this fire concerned us greatly because directly downwind is the Kula 200 neighborhood and the neighborhood, the residential neighborhoods of Hanauma Road and Upper Makawao. So the yellow lines that you see here are the fire breaks, about 11 miles worth that were installed within about 12 hours. We had machinery on the ground within probably just by daybreak, and we're able to beat that fire back. And I tell you what, it's a stubborn fire. This particular gulch is full of century-old eucalyptus trees that are still smoldering. We had to go out just last week with our own fire truck and put out a fire from the smoldering roots of these trees. So it's still an ongoing issue. Around noon that day, the Kula fire lit up. Tragically, 27 homes were lost in that particular area. And then about 4:30, next slide, Rob, please. About 4:30 in the afternoon, we got word that a fire had started up here right along Palehu Road, just below the Ag Park in the county right-of-way. This fire quickly propagated across our 1,000-acre Waiahono pasture, jumped into our Puhao pastures, and burned about 3,000 acres of Mahipono land. Again, in yellow are the fire breaks that were installed within about 24 to 36 hours. And let's keep in mind that the winds in both locations were clocked at about 60 to 80 miles an hour for about 30 hours straight, so air support was not an option. So MPD, MFD were heroic and stretched extremely thin, manning residential issues, dealing with areas that they could easily access. The wildlands were left to the ranches and DLNR, and I have to say, without the support of the private sector, things would have turned out very, very differently for our community, particularly here in Kihei. Next slide, Rob, please. If any of you doubt the efficacy of fire breaks, study this map. This is aerial imagery that was taken shortly after the fire, onto which we've imposed where the fire breaks were installed. And you can see that the fire breaks that were installed by Chris Hayes, P.B. Sullivan, Goodfellow Brothers, Rojak. I'm hesitant to name people because I'm afraid I'm gonna leave somebody out. But everybody showed up on purpose, on time, and made things work. And it made a difference in this community. And I don't want anybody to forget the investment that our friends, some of whom are in this room, have made to save our community. You know, the outcome of the fires created a terrible situation. The slopes of Waiakoa Stream, next slide, please, Ron. So Waiakoa Stream, as you know, runs along here, and the boundary between Mahipono and Haleakala Ranch runs all the way up here and goes probably to about 7,000 or 8,000 feet in elevation on the slopes. This first blue line here is Kulani Hakoi, and this one is Waipuilani. The fire stopped just short of Kulani Hakoi, but it certainly burned the northern edge of the stream corridor. Both sides of Waiakoa were burned. And these fires burned hot because of the fuel loads, the wood primarily, the kiawe. The grasses had been grazed down here as well as up country, so that I think really helped us in terms of the velocity of the fire. But what we're left with now are destabilized slopes. And we have some grass that's trying to come back, but the problem is as soon as it comes back, the deer are there to take it. So we had your Central Maui Soil and Water Conservation District representatives, National Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS staff, as well as FEMA, EPA, U.S. Forest Service people come out. We toured them through these areas, and they put together what is called a damage survey report, a formal document that was presented to NRCS, and this follows up on what you were talking about, Rob, Ron?
Ron.
Yeah, and you as well, Michael. I have learned just within the past couple of days that NRCS is very close to approving a $9 million package of practices that are intended to mitigate the flooding issues that are exacerbated by these fires. So fortunately, the people that were on the ground and did these reports understood the importance of taking care of the feral animals prior to reestablishing vegetation. So what we're looking at is having NRCS fund through this Emergency Watershed Protection Program the installation of these yellow lines right here as a 6-foot deer fence. And that actually wraps all the way around the Mahipono burn area. In concert with the red lines, which are existing game fences that are going to create management units within which we can cull the animals and give the vegetation a chance to recover. These programs also provide for aerial reseeding of grasses in the area that will, hopefully give us a chance to stabilize these barren areas before too long.
Well, fire breaks. And as I've mentioned, it's going to be a serious issue that's going to be discussed with this task force. Councilman, as I know, is going to talk about it to a certain degree. And you need to eat more venison. Okay?
Okay, I have my clock.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Take the wireless phone.
Hey, it's still on, great. Good evening, everybody. Really happy to be here. Grateful for this invitation, and also really happy to be here for the second meeting in this venue. This is a really wonderful place to come. Much, much nicer than the KCA Community Center that doesn't have very good acoustics and isn't nearly as comfortable. So thank you very much for this. You know, Maui County's been through a lot, and I'm gonna talk about KCA. I'm gonna let you know what we've been doing regarding the flood mitigation and R1 water development. R1 expansion is going to be a key to mitigating a lot of the fire hazards, as well as having the opportunity to utilize the resource for constructive use instead of putting it in the injection wells. But I just want to share with you, like, the county is super stretched thin. So just whatever expectations people have. I don't know if you've been to Lahaina, but it looks like the pictures of Hiroshima. And the personnel, everybody is doing the best they can. And I can't speak highly enough for the Maui Police Department, the Maui Fire Department, all of the people that have just worked tirelessly, both in government and out of government. And I encourage us all to remain supportive for months to come, because it's going to actually take years. But anyway, I'm your Maui County South Maui representative. I'm really glad to be representing you. I'm enjoying this job. I'm learning a lot. This is my first term. And my background is in construction. I've been a builder most of my life. Didn't go to high school, went working in construction, civil engineering, construction, carpentry. I've always been one to visualize and enjoy the process of creating it. Also enjoyed the process of working with people, bringing people together, getting things done with a wide variety of people. So that's what I am striving to do at the county now, which is to encourage the various departments to get a better understanding of what they need to do to help the community and facilitate instead of over-regulate. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to get a permit, but I think you'd understand what I'm talking about. So I have 4 slides, and then I'm going to get into what's been funded and what's being done, kind of a follow-up. So stormwater, most of the stormwater conversation to date has been the mud and the damage from these major streams. But as we get that under control, it's also increased. I want to bring to everybody's attention the opportunity and the responsibility that we all have basically to keep toxic chemicals out of our catch basins, out of the ocean, what we do to manage our impact on the surrounding areas. The sewer systems and the storm drains, I mean, basically, that's the opportunity that we can recycle that water. When it comes to the stormwater, the opportunity for us to recycle the stormwater is to capture it and retention basins up Malka to separate the sediment, enable the water to settle into the ground, recharge the aquifer, and what water does come down, because we want the water to come down to the ocean, but it's basically more manageable and it's also clean water. So managing it from Malka to Makai, I just want to emphasize that, because I've met countless people in the community. I've walked through the gulches and the streams. I've been to the areas that were devastated from the mud flood. I've had the opportunity to walk up the mountain with both of these gentlemen and see the work that they're doing. Bring Jordan Molina from Public Works up with the ranch to make the connections. Bring in the water director, Director Suffelbean up to talk about how we can deal with utilizing the R1 water to offset the potable water. And that's where I'm gonna focus on this next year, is to really emphasize that the more we use R1 water to offset the potable water, that's like a dual win. Got any water? So
we'll get you some.
yeah. Anyway, next slide. Next slide. I'm not real dialed into the slides. I got my other thing. So basically, I'm going to go through this real quick before I get to the rest of the part. These are basically County of Maui handouts, and to give you some guidelines for waste disposal. A lot of it is common sense, but too often people don't understand. Home and auto care, car washing, what the impact that does. It depends on where you're doing it. If you're doing it, it's right by and it's going into the road and it's going to a catch basin. All of that in the catch basin is going down to the ocean. So I encourage everybody to be very conscious and very cognizant of what you're doing when you're hosing things down. If you can sweep stuff instead of clean up, or use even a leaf blower instead of doing just using a hose and washing everything down. That wastes water, and also it's more likely to get it into the ocean. Thanks. Could you tell I needed that? You can get it at our KCA. Yeah, talk to Bill. Thank you. My tongue was sticking to the top of my mouth, so it was getting rather awkward to talk. Could I have the next slide? Okay, I have this.
Like an eye chart.
This is intermission. Okay, so slide 3, this is an example of just one of the hotels in Wailea, what they're accomplishing. I'm discussing with the possible extension of R1 water lines to all of the hotels. Basically, if you get R1 water to their boundary, they're mandated to use it. The water is approximately 75% cheaper, and they are very willing to use it, and actually they're going to contribute financially to it too. But some of the things that the hotels have done is like 18% reduction in water use per occupied guest room, 1.77 million kilowatt hours of energy saved, 2.2% reduction in electricity consumption per occupied guest room, installed low voltage LED lights and options in the restaurants, using 16 tons locally generated compost for their landscaping, reducing the use of inorganic fertilizers and water usage. More than 700,000 pounds of food waste repurposed, basically for piggery, or also to donate good food, and then 6,000 gallons of cooking oil recycled. You might ask why I'm saying that. Where are we going to get the money to do all the infrastructure that we need? We're really fortunate in South Maui that we have a thriving tourist industry. We also have some very wealthy friends and neighbors. And to acknowledge the constructive, progressive things that are doing, I think needs to be said more often. Because too often, what we you know, the tourism industry, which is overburdened at times, overburdensome, doesn't get the credit for the jobs and the funds. Also, the luxury homes that can pay $200,000 a year tax for a single home. That's our tax base. That's our annuity that we need to use that's going to help get us through the next few years when we're going to be extremely tight. So I'm just sharing with you, like, how are we going to pay for stuff? We have the resources. We have the businesses that can do that. But we need to work together as a community and be supportive of it. So, some of the things that we've done in the last year, as far as the flood prevention, a lot has been done, a lot is funding, and I'll bring you up to date. Basically, the Malka to Mackay portion to the Pi'ilani Highway is basically what the ranches are handling. From the Pi'ilani Highway down to the ocean, the flood mitigation efforts that we discussed in our town hall meetings in May and September are ongoing. The county, the money that we put in last year in the budget and earmarked to purchase property for and clean out the streams in Kalaniakoi that's earmarked. That money is going to be spent. It's not going to be lost because of the fire or some of these other things. It's planned to start in January, and I am adamant that I'm going to pursue getting this done with the Department of Public Works. So I just want to share with you, because I've met with you and talked with people, and I understand how frustrating it is to see why aren't they doing anything? Why isn't it done? What's happening? So part of the reason tonight, part of this talk is to basically give you an update. Also, the county is in negotiation with the Weinberg Foundation to purchase the 27 acres at the entry to KCA, and that's going to make a really big difference. It isn't the ideal place for a retention basin, but it's an appropriate place to expand the wetlands. So, as far as the R1 water goes, getting it, I'm advocating that we get it south to the hotels. And I'd like to see us be able to, instead of one 3 million gallon reservoir, having 6 or 7 3 million gallon reservoirs. And anyway, that's my mindset. This problem is a big problem. We need to think big. We need to be persistent and aggressive in advocating for it. And so that's what you can do to help me and help the council, is to actually be supportive of these endeavors. The retention basins are going to be expensive. They're not difficult to build. It's just, they're just a lot of work. So, basically the $8 million that the council has allocated is earmarked for 23, 24 and will be spent. And meanwhile, the administration is discussing the acquisition of Waipolani, Kalaniakoi Gulch, and the Waikoa drainage ways and the 27 acres. Kind of in summary, the overall goal is to reduce the runoff and the flooding from the top of the mountain to the stormwater, to the retention, from the retention ponds, and spread the water so that it goes into the recharge aquifer. The solution is doing it Malka to Mackay. So that's my formal one. Now I'm just gonna, now I can like not read stuff and lighten up a little bit. And bear with me tonight. I'm really glad to be here. The last 2 months have been a learning experience, an emotional roller coaster, and extremely challenging. And to be in the council, trying to work with the administration, who, for whatever reason, they're having their own hard times. Is that my 15 minutes?
That's it.
Oh. So, thank you for your patience with me this evening, and I'm just going to ask you, all of you, to step up in our community, to participate with the opportunities that are given, to be patient, to be grateful, and just be healthy, and let's all work to make this a great community that it is. Thank you.
Before I forget, I heard something tonight that I didn't know, and I want you all to do a special shout out to Scott and the other rangers. To hear someone say that they are first responders and what they're doing up there to protect all of us deserves a huge round of applause. We owe a great deal to these people. They're protecting their own property, but they're also protecting you. Okay, so we're going to questions and answers. We have any cards for me to read from?
Well, we're just collecting them.
Well, we're behind schedule.
Oh, you need a card?
I need a card.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Oh, one that's already done.
Did you guys find this interesting? Did you guys some good stuff? This is important to all of us, but it's particularly important to the people who live in KCA. I mean, this is our future. This is our safety. Not to mention stormwater running off. You have no questions for me?
No, we have questions.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll do my best.
It's the drainage, which it's the road is named after that.
Well, this is question has been answered, but the question is, why can't we eradicate the deer? I think we've pretty much discussed everything that they're trying to do to eradicate the deer. I mean, it is. I mean, when you realize that there's what, 50,000, 70,000? Go ahead. Here.
Lynn, can you help us out by maybe turning down these lights just a little bit?
You can see you folks now. Really appreciate that. So the statistics are this: you need to take out about 30% of a population on a yearly basis, and that would be female animals, in order to achieve a zero growth situation. So if we're talking about, well, you do the math, that's a lot of does that we need to take out. And the challenge is that there have been breeding populations of deer, sustainable breeding populations of deer, established in every region of the island. So each of those areas needs to be treated like its own separate population. So it's an extraordinarily challenging situation. Eradication, I think we should just be clear. I don't think it's it's possible on a regional basis. I think it's possible within areas like these deer exclusion zones, like we were talking about, the 2,000 or 3,000 acres that are going to be created with the NRCS funding and the deer fencing that's going to go in on Mahipono, Kaumu, and Haleakala ranches. So we're going to do it in postage stamps, bit by bit by bit, and we'll get to a point, I think, where we can have manageable numbers of deer in certain locations over time, but it's going to be a process.
Okay, Michael, I think this one's for you. People would like to know, I mean, you did talk about this a little bit, so let's just expand a bit on it, what are you doing, and what can we do to populate the slopes with grasses that are more indigenous to our island?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think they're referring to the KCA riparian rehabilitation project, which is a 7-acre dryland native forest project that's using R1 water. And we chose that project specifically because we understand that our Malcolm-Mackay connections are so important, and we think that these areas they provide an opportunity to reestablish some native species on the landscape and also just provide that connection. Now, I will say I know that there's been some discussion about like forage crops as opposed to native plants, and I know that the ranches do have some like koa that's being introduced into some of their upcountry pastures. It does become much more difficult at lower elevations just because drought conditions and access to water, which again I'll use that to like tout the importance of R1 water. But I don't know if you want to add to that at all, Scott. Or?
Sure. Just a couple additional thoughts, Michael. I think you're absolutely right. But I also think that that we need to be real clear that the issue doesn't have so much to do with the species of grass or forage that we're talking about. It has to do with management. Peely grass will burn as hot in a given circumstance as buffalo grass, which is the introduced grass on these slopes. It's been here for over 100 years. Additionally, the prospect of revegetating an entire landscape with peely grass or other endemic or indigenous plants is a pretty tall order when you have established grasses in a modified habitat. The buffalo grass and the other exotic grasses will try to choke out the peely grass. Peely grass is not particularly palatable to cattle, incidentally. But what we are wanting to do is to expand the model that Michael has developed at our KCA restoration, riparian restoration project, where we can incrementally, within enclosed environments, reestablish the complete matrix of native plants from the grass level layer to the herb layer to the shrub layer to the canopy and subcanopy layer, all within a protected environment. So you've got these multiple types of native plants working together like they normally did in the original environment.
Sorry. People want to know where they can download the slides. So could each of you please talk about that?
Sure, I'll be happy to email the slides to whoever would like them. I'm not going to set up a public portal, but if you'd like, you can reach out to me. I'm the only Scot Haleakala Ranch, just give us a call. And my email is Scott with 2 T's at Haleakala Ranch, so just shoot me an email.
Ron, how about they shoot it to us, the KCA, and then we can go on our CA?
Sure, I can put it on the, I'll put it on the website.
Oh, thank you.
How's that?
Love it.
Hey, Councilman, this is for you. What are the rules, codes, and such like that that control the excavation of the gulches and the clearing of the gulches? Is there anything that's out there that deals with that?
Thank you for the question, and yes. Twofold. First is the state historic preservation. So any work that's going to be done needs to be evaluated and monitored as it's being done. Pretty much, it depends on it, but I've been an advocate of doing that no matter what, always. Getting a grading permit from the Department of Public Works, and if it's Mackay of the Pi'ilani Highway, you have to get a special management area permit from the planning department. So, and many people don't know this, the county of Maui has to get all the same permits that anybody else gets, and I can't figure out what, and I don't like it, but it seems like the county has a harder time getting a permit than other people. They don't expedite it all, even though it's for all of our benefit. So basically addressing SHPD, state historic preservation requirements, the SMA, special management area project criteria, and then also the a grading permit is required.
And who pays for it?
If it's private property, it would be the private person. These projects that I've been discussing and that Representative assisted with, the county did 1.5 million, and the state, through her efforts, did an additional 1.5 million match. And so that's going to be the money that's partially used for cleaning it out. The county allocated $5 million to purchase the properties. So these particular projects that we're describing are going to be paid for by the county. It actually should have been done by the private landowners over a long period of time. Unfortunately, some of these lots were subdivided off, and if you look at the TMK, it's almost like worthless property. Kind of irritates me that they allowed them to create these parcels and then almost abandon them.
Thank you. There's a question here wanting to know if there are specific areas of Kihei that are of particular fire hazards. I can answer that. You know what and this is something that the task force is going to look at rather carefully. The areas that are north of the highway in North Kihei, they are that back up to to the grasslands, where the sugarcane plantations used to be. They are obviously in the most danger. And one of the things that we're going to focus on is creating fire breaks back there. I mean, we've already heard. I mean, Scott has explained to us in great detail what a value fire breaks are. But what he was telling you with those great people, Goodfellas and others, what they were doing is they were building fire breaks when the fire was going. What we're talking about on the task force is building fire breaks well before the fires and making sure that they are maintained and that they are clean and ready to go. So that's really something that we're trying to do. There's a question here about R1 water. R1 water seems to be a benefit to the community. What are we doing? So who wants to talk about R1 water one more time? Go.
I love talking about R1 water. R1 water is, there's no such thing as wastewater, it's wasted water. And I think we have about 4 million gallons of available with what's planned on expanding in the community, which whenever we have development, it basically is adding to our sewage treatment. The benefit of that is basically you have the potential to get the R1 water from that. And so it increases our R1 water use, or R1 water availability. So I'm very impressed with environmental management and our wastewater division. I recently did a tour of the sewage, KCA sewage treatment plant, and an exhaustive time where they showed the treatment of the system. They are upgrading it soon to be UV treated as well, which will be the lower the bacterial count. But the water is high quality, can be used for agriculture, everything but drinking and for truck cups. So what we need to do, and fortunately these gentlemen are actively doing it, is to expand the storage capacity up Malka, preferably pumping it uphill once, and then gravity flow to come back down. So the county's developing R1 water, expanding on it, as well as the ranches and the environmental groups. So I feel very good and enthusiastic about what's being done to expand the use of R1 water.
Great, thank you. The last question is, it has to do with alerts on our cell phones. What's happening, I mean, is there anything being put in place with regard to getting alerts on your cell phones?
We do.
I'm glad you do.
I do.
I mean,
Did you sign up for them?
We recently got an alert that there was a fire up and the highway was closed. Is that all that's going on?
I believe after what's happened in Lahaina and upcountry, that the emergency response from Maui County is vastly, everybody's acutely aware of it. I think Maui Police Department does an excellent job. We recently approved a budget amendment that basically will expand 2 additional channels for them, which won't be susceptible to cell phones and won't be susceptible to cable and fiber. I encourage you to go to the county website and to Maui Fire Department's website, Maui Police Department's website to kind of get updated on that. But I just want to assure you, the County of Maui and your local government is very aware of what happened. Can't undo what happened, but everybody I've talked to is heartbroken and wants to make sure that this doesn't happen again and that people have as much warning as possible. Fire breaks, taking care of our yards. So,
gentlemen, thank you very much. Could I have a round of applause for you? Therese, 5 minutes.
Everyone, I'm South Maui State Representative Teresa Amato. I know most of you here. It's nice to see such a great turnout. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentations. Mahalo KCA for bringing up this important topic. Fire prevention is truly flood prevention, so it was important to hear all of these efforts. Rob, thank you. Great timing. So as you guys know, Kihei has been hit by a flood repeatedly. December 2021, September 2022, and then December same year, and then again in January of this year. This once-in-a-century flood has occurred twice in just the last 2 years. So I am grateful for the response from Haleakala Ranch, as well as the NGOs like Maui Nui Marine Resource Council. Hey Tova, nice to see you. As well as Michael at Maui Environmental Consulting. I've connected with over 100 Kihei residents on this issue. Many of them have experienced the flooding firsthand, very personally and intimately. They are rightly concerned about safety and the economic impact. So I've archived their ideas, their plans, and their concerns, and I've relayed them to the Maui County Department of Public Works. The County of Maui controls the bridges and streets where the flooding is occurring. So I've reached out to Department of Public Works Director Molina nearly a half a dozen times with the community concerns, engineering studies, and more. And I'm still waiting for a substantive reply from my emails dating back to March. I mean, this is a critical issue. It absolutely needs more county effort and follow-up. So how do we solve this? I mean, ultimately, the solution is we protect our community by funding environmentally friendly strategies, such as replacing the undersized.
Next one.
Next, thanks. Forgot we weren't connected. So replacing undersized drainage culverts, reducing the transport of sediments through R1 irrigated plant areas with deer fencing. We must construct vegetative retaining walls, building of water detention and retention features, reservoirs. I'm excited to hear about the potential land purchase for creating those retention basins. We must repair and replace inadequate water release culverts on South Kihei Road. This work requires MALCA by DLNR partnership with the ranches using state and county funds, as well as cooperation by the County Department of Public Works. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we can't undo 50 years of development in a wetland area without environmental assessments, where when I was a kid, permits were handed out like candy. Nor can I reverse climate change. Gosh, I wish I could. As a state official, I cannot legally affect a county bridge or a county road. I can, however, obtain funding and amplify your voices. So I requested DLNR action, and I've obtained state funding for mitigation. Specifically, I requested and obtained funds for flood prevention and mitigation MALCA, more funding for the R1 water reservoirs, planting, and access deer mitigation fencing for the Kulani Hakoi, Waiakoa, and Waikuilani gulches. This will not solve the problem today, but it will help in the future. Next. So specific flood mitigation funding. So I'm not going to talk about the $50+ million that our community is receiving just from my first year. I'm here just to focus on this $2.5 million for flood mitigation efforts. Flood mitigation, as I said, is truly fire prevention. So this $2.5 million will go to the plans, design, and construction for flood prevention and mitigation measures around Kulani Hakoi, Waikuilani, and the Waiakoa Gulch systems to include an R1 water reservoir, ground and site improvements, planting, fencing, the equipment and appurtenances, and it will ideally work towards obtaining the next $10 million that will be necessary. Next, please. So greening MALCA with R1 water, as we've heard so much about tonight, is also wildfire prevention. It's a 2-for-1, so it's a sound investment. As a member of the House Special Working Group on Wildfire Prevention, I'm pushing for this funding for increased water distribution to green our hills, because that is how we'll prevent these fires. So in summary, I'm Teresa Amato. I'm working for the people. Ultimately, I work for you guys, so I really want to hear what you guys want from me. What do you want me to do? Best way, the quickest way to reach me is at my email up there, repamato@capital.hawaii.gov. Also listed is my Capital Office phone number, 808-586-8525. You can always find me at tomato.com. You say tomato, I say tomato. And in the sake of brevity, that's what I have tonight. I'll be around after for questions. If you want to come talk story, I'll be here. Thank you. We still have a lot more work to do at the state capitol for this and many other issues in our community. So tonight, I want to announce that I am going to be seeking re-election to continue serving as your state representative at the state capitol. I have to say it is the most challenging job. It is not part-time like they advertised. It's challenging, it's full-time, but it is also the most rewarding job in the world. Every morning it's, who will we get to serve today? Whose voice will we amplify at the state legislature? So thank you so much. Happy holidays. Mahalo KCA. Mahalo Lynn for this venue. Mahalo gentlemen for your presentations. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, lastly, we're all done. Lastly, I want to ask you people, you know, there's a group of us that work on coming up with themes for these meetings, and of course we try to divine what it is that you want to hear, which is not easy sometimes. So I'm asking you, if in fact, and if there are particular topics, subjects that you would like to hear about, please come and tell me. Because, you know, that's what we're here to do. We're here to give you good information like tonight. And so if there's things that you know we're not focusing on that you would prefer that we focus on, please come and tell me. Thank you again. Have a great holiday.
So they're staples. Is it packaged?